I'm going to show you some sampler tricks that I love and simpler. Let's start with a vocal loop from Splice. So when you find a sample you like, you can just drag it straight into a new MIDI track and it'll load up Simpler. If you right click on it, you can turn it into Sampler. First trick I want to show, I'm going to turn down this velocity. In this MIDI tab, you can have any of these MIDI controls modulate any of these given parameters. But if you go next to velocity and like select sample offset, you have to turn this up to 100. You can move the starting point of the sample depending on the velocity you're playing. So we're going to get a velocity MIDI device, turn it on fixed, and then full random. So then each time we click a MIDI note, it'll be a different velocity. And then you can control your ADSR and stuff. And say if you feel like there's too many open spaces in your sample, like in this one right here, you can just slice the open parts, drag them together, scrunch them in, then hold shift, highlight them all, and then do option command F, and all the clips will fade into each other so it won't be super poppy. And then command J, drag it back into sampler. And if you don't like the random velocity, like being random each time, first turn off this velocity, then make a new MIDI clip. Just draw a bunch of notes. So with all of your notes selected, you can press this randomize velocity button, and each of these notes will have a different velocity triggering a different part of the sample. And you even go to this note expression right here and pitch it up, like make it glide up right here. Let's delete that and extend this so
it's a trick of the light.
and if like one of these notes is sounding not the position you want, then you can just randomize one of them at a time. Now something else you can do with sampler for the case of what I want to do right now. I'm going to make a hi-hat selector, go to sampler, open up this zone here. We'll just go on the selector tab. So I want to try to drag in approximately 128 samples. So select all your samples and right click in this zone here, distribute ranges equally. And this is more than 128, so after this one right here, we're just going to delete the rest of these. Now I'm going to make this into a rack, map this blue bar to a macro. So I might just ARP it. So with this sample selector, we're picking which sample is playing. I like the beginning one, honestly. Let's try to find some perk hits or something. So drag that in there. Simpler to sampler. This time, let's hit the velocity tab. Same shit. So now, since we distributed it among velocity, the velocity will determine which sample plays instead of us selecting it with this knob here. So we can then, let's do the same thing we did earlier and randomize velocity, see if we can get a cool pattern. Sample selection is key. I'm just gonna ADSR this and get the drum buddy rack from the new update from my rack pack. So right here, I think I might want to put a bass fill, so we can do another one of the same things we were just doing. I think I'm just going to drag in a bunch of bass one shots. Let's go back to velocity. So ideally, you might want to have your shit labeled, like in terms of like note and key and stuff, but just for like the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to kind of keep it simple. And also, if you wanted to kind of make these bass samples more your own, you could turn on this oscillator section here under pitch/oscillator and basically turn up this knob right here to FM, which can sound pretty wild depending on what sound is going through. And you can even change the type of wave, like pretty much like operator, except you can't draw your own harmonics. You can even AM if you wanted to. Let's get big verbifier from my new update. It's crazy because this sounds like nothing without the reverb. It just sounds like just a crazy or just a weird bass sound, and then this rack just. I feel like this one would sound cool with FM. Get some noise from this one. So now is a good time, I think, to get into simpler. I might get a sound design session I made earlier. That sounds kind of crazy. You got the warp modes and stuff like already built in here, so you can like pitch it up to however you might want. But in simpler, I really like the slice mode here, where you can either slice by transient or slice by region. And the downside with the regions is that at least I haven't figured out a way to control the ADSR. Besides, I guess you could envelope MIDI and get a volume macro. I mean, that's why I think simple offset is good, because you basically just have 127 equal slices. But here you could like play it on your like computer keyboard. So that's something you can get cool instantly with like sound design sessions. I think another cool way to do some simpler sound design sessions. Let's get like another like glitchy mud pie. Like let's get this one. You need to kind of time this one right. If you have your sample like already warped, you can right click on it and slice new MIDI track. Let's see, cut this down a little bit. I like transient for slicing. You can play with any of these slicing presets. I'm just gonna do built in. You get all these like looping like slices and shit. Like it makes this rack for you. You can like automate these like loop links and stuff. And if you wanted, you could turn down the volume to velocity and then just right click, map to all siblings, and all the other samples will follow. Same with something like volume. Something I like to do that's fun with this is just draw a ton of MIDI notes, then just hold like Option or Alt, keep on duplicating these notes until you have one on every slice. Then just Command A and drag them out for a really long time. Then get arpeggiator and turn it on random. Get a new audio track for resampling. Then just like listen to what it generates. So the last thing I feel like I can show, I showed this in my G Jones tutorial, but just in case you haven't seen it, I like to get full breakbeat samples, make a group, and then drag all your drum breaks into this chain window here. Then just do the same thing with your chain, drag them out, distribute ranges equally. Something tedious that I hate that you can't do, you have to go inside all of them and slice by beat if you want to like be able to play them on your keyboard. As far as I know, you can't save as a default preset. So say if you're willing to play like the first 4 quarter notes of each loop, you could like duplicate these from C1 to D sharp 1. And just keep on moving this thing around, or you can get expression control and then just map a random to the chain selector. So each time a new note is triggered, then it'll play a different sample. that's all I have for this session. If there's sampler tricks that you know that I didn't cover that you think are really cool, like just let me know if you know of any. Go download the new update to the Rack Pack if you don't have it yet. Stay tuned for new music and Max devices pretty soon.